Hello and welcome back to the Global Gaming Network Power Rankings. We're doing another episode of Valorant. We just wrapped up Masters Toronto and EWC is around the corner. So we've got our rankings, top 5 teams that are going into EWC to see how they're going to stack up against each other. Today I'm joined with my good friend Pat, who is a huge Valorant enjoyer. How are we doing today, Pat?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to be back on the show after our little Toronto's power ranking, and I'm mainly just excited that we are actually getting more tournaments for Valorant, because that's one of the biggest criticisms. EWC is going to be fantastic. I'm so excited to watch.
Yes, we will be heading over to Riyadh here shortly, but before we do, we want to jump into the rankings. Before that, though, I just want to explain the way it works. We've got an expert consensus score, which is a 30% weighting in the score. 70% of the score comes from actual performance. So Masters Toronto, being the most recent tournament, has the largest weight in our rankings. But with that understood, let's go ahead and jump into number 5 on the list, and that's going to be Sentinels, coming in with a score of 76. They did finish top 6 at Toronto, but they looked pretty good at different times. They also beat Wolves, who finished 3rd in the tournament. They beat Wolves early on in the Swiss stage. Then they go on to beat Billy, XLG, and the only 2 teams they lost to were Paper Rex and Fnatic, who finished top 2 in the event. So my question for you, Pat, is did we not get to see the full force of Sentinels at this tournament, and do we think they belong in the top 5 internationally?
I think they definitely belong in the top 5. I mean, obviously going into Toronto, we had them ranked at the 3rd spot. And while they did do really well, specifically the Wolves game, you know, they knocked them out early on before they started their underdog story, which really kind of adds to their credibility as a team. But they did lose to Paper X and Fnatic, who were looking strong that tournament. But for me, Sentinels is a wild card in the sense that it depends on what Sentinels you get. If you get the Sentinels that are popping off, there's no doubt in my mind this is a top 5 team, because when John Cutie's leading this team and Zekin's firing on all cylinders, there's hardly anybody that can stop them. And as long as Zelsis keeps the vibe up, because for me, Sentinels, they're definitely a little bit different in my terms, because they're almost like a vibe team. Because like you can tell when Zelsis is keeping it real and they're hyped up and energetic, they're playing well. But when they get down in their fields, man, do they start to play bad. And I think that's the biggest thing they need to overcome with EWC is just stick to themselves, play their game, keep the vibes up, and they will easily place very well at EWC.
Yeah, I love that analysis. One thing I did notice was John QT specifically had a rough series against Fnatic in their elimination round. He stepped up for game 3, but by that time it was a little bit too late. He had rough performances in games 1 and 2. So I'd like to see their vibes be high. Zekin and Zelsis, when they're playing well, are some of the best in the world. So I can't wait to see how they do in EWC. But let's go ahead and go into number 4 on the list, and that is going to be GenG. They come in with a score of 89, so a bit higher than Sentinels. This team, I think we didn't really see the full force of what they're capable of. They had some really crazy highlight moments, but ultimately fell to Wolves in G2 in their run. It felt like Texture could be one of the best players in the world at times. This guy was a human highlight reel, just popping off left and right. When they go to EWC, do we think we're going to see maybe a better version of GenG?
Oh, 100%. GenG, while not the best showing at Toronto, they had some pretty dominant games, and they were one of the teams that beat Paper X. And that's no feat on all. Now, they face Paper X all the time since they're from the same region, but Texture is a machine. This man is constantly putting out 4Ks and getting his aces stolen all the time. It's kind of like a running meme within the community, but he is unstoppable. Their falling shorts, though, was multiple games where they lost. They had the lead and they were up like 6+ rounds, and then they just kept falling short. And I think it kind of falls into a similar boat with Sentinels. As long as they can just keep their composure and play their game, they'll have no chances of losing at EWC, because they are a top caliber team, and they definitely deserve their spot here at number 4, for sure, 100%.
Yeah, fun fact, they were actually, I think, the only team in the tournament to defeat both Paper X and Fnatic at different points in this tournament. The 2 teams that finished top 2, but of course, when you lose to Wolves and G2, you're not going to make it all the way to the end like the other 2. So very curious to see how they do in EWC. It does also kind of highlight the point that like Valorant's all over the place right now. Anybody can beat anyone. It really comes down to like who's hot in the moment. So like to see Texture show up hot. Well, let's look at the next one on the list. This one could surprise a few people, but in number 3, we've got G2. This was our previous number 1 placing team in our last power rankings, ahead of Toronto, but they fell short. They ended up finishing 4th. By the way, we have a score of 90 for them in our power ranking scale, but they had a tough run. I want to say that there's a lot of discussion about the fact they didn't get to play Swiss, which means maybe they didn't have as momentum going into it as the rest of the teams that came out of Swiss. We saw, I think, every single first place seed getting knocked to lower round 1 in winners round 1. So maybe if they have a little bit more time to, get their feet under them in the group stage that we're going to see in EWC, we'll see a better version of G2. But I also want to talk about Trent. I mean, Trent didn't really get to play his tried and true Tejo because of the nerf right before the tournament, having to go to champions like Fade and Sova. What do you think is going to be the key to success for G2 going into EWC?
G2 is definitely more of a little bit of a frustrating point for me because they are the definition of a team of all caliber superstars. And if they're all firing on all cylinders, then they're all good. And sure, they may have fell victim to this rumor of like all the first seeds, they all fell because they didn't get to play in the Swiss. But I think they just shake things like that off and just come right back into it, because every game that they lost leading up to their finals there, when they lost against Fnatic and went out, every game they played was close. In the series versus Fnatic specifically, it was just a matter of a couple rounds that kept them from being able to advance, which goes to your statement earlier of like all these top teams here are all so close together. You could easily see one team beating the other and vice versa constantly. And for Trent specifically, the Tejo nerf definitely messed with their strategies per se, not necessarily him personally, because he's played a lot of Sova in the past before Tejo was even an agent. But G2, for me, they just need to stick to their guns and they need to run their strategies a little bit better. I'd like to see Valorant coach the team a little bit more. He's been doing a little bit of press conferences and talking about how people only remember the champs and that's what they're focusing on. And I think this is a good road to showcase that in the EWC and try to get out of this group stage.
Okay, well, they've got a tough group stage ahead of them. They do have Fnatic, EDW, and 100 Thieves in their group. So we'll see if they can come out on top. I think they got a good chance. Actually, my mistake. Let me correct myself. G2's pool is actually Billy, Paper Rex, and Carmine Corp. So yeah, they did beat BLG at the last event, I believe. So shouldn't have an issue with them. But Paper Rex, of course, going to be a tough team to beat.
That was going to be tough.
Okay, well, let's go into number 2 on the list. That's going to be Fnatic, coming in with a score of 91. And this team, I think, not many people expected to finish second place at the event, but they were on fire. They actually got sent to lower rounds 1 early, losing to GenG in winners round 1, and just make a hell of a lower bracket run. They beat RRQ, Sentinels, G2, Wolves, and then finally faced Paper Rex in the finals, losing 3-1. Alpha Year had some crazy numbers this tournament. I mean, he had an ADR over 300 in multiple games, including against Paper Rex. So what do you think Fnatic needs to do to step it up and rise to the occasion come EWC?
Good old Fnatic. Yeah, as you were saying, Alpha Year was popping off the entire tournament. It was incredible to see, specifically in their game versus Sentinels. I mean, he was just making it look like a rank lobby. It was kind of sad to see for any North American fans out there. But Fnatic are a strong team that derive from their strategy with their IRL boaster. Asmeric character, I love him. But the problem for me with Fnatic is, and what got them into a lot of trouble in Toronto, was sometimes they get a little bit too much into the weeds with their play calling, and they will try to rush a site with like 20 seconds left, and that will be their ultimate downfall. So while I love Boaster's play calling and the way he maneuvers the map, I think they just need to fine-tune that a little bit more and make decisions a little bit quicker and not wait till the last second. And I think they have no problem. Same as G2 or any of those, beating Paper Rex, coming out on top here at EWC.
Okay, I'm really excited watching this team. Chronicle, another player that was popping off all tournament. And then, of course, the young gun, K-Jack, who he's one of the youngest rising stars in the league, and he's insane. So I think they're going to have a fun run in EWC for us to watch. But, of course, we got to get into the number 1 team coming off a win in Masters Toronto. They went from an honorable mention all the way up to number 1 on our list, of course, is Paper Rex. This team's incredible. I mean, you called it out. I got to give you credit. Going into this tournament, you had them ranked as the number 2 team behind G2, and they proved why you believed in them. Forsaken was incredible this tournament. He seemed to be popping off. But realistically, it's kind of their whole team. Like, there's not really a weak part of this team. They seem to play fast and loose, but also slow and methodical when it makes sense to. I mean, they don't really have any weaknesses. Do you think that Paper Rex can go back-to-back and win EWC as well?
Oh, I think it's definitely possible, because this team is something special. And I feel like they, as I talked a little bit about it when in the Dark Horse before on the previous episode, is how they were pretty much pre-adapted to the Tejo nerfs, because they played a completely different style. And with their aggressive style, where they were able to catch teams off guard. And I think that's what inevitably helped them in the end. It wasn't just that, because just like G2, their entire team is a roster of all superstars who all are capable of popping off at any moment. What I would like to see from Paper Rex, for them to be able to handle this back-to-back, is to maybe slow things down a little bit sometimes, because a lot of times the rounds they lose, and like with Team Liquid, where they almost had that monumental throw on Lotus, is they kind of get a little bit too ahead of themselves, and they take a lot of peaks they shouldn't, little 1v1s that they think they can win, almost like their ego challenge sometimes. And it ends up getting them down 5-4, 5-3 in the round. So if they just clean up that little bit and just focus on maybe sometimes switching it up to a slower play style, I think that they are a team definitely to fear.
Team to fear indeed. And I want to just mention something that's pretty crazy about their run, is the fact that they lost to GenG in Swiss and then played Team Liquid in a 3-game series and only won the 3rd game by 2 rounds. So you got to imagine there might have been a single fight or a single play that even got them into the brackets in the first place, and then they catapult that into a victory. I mean, I'm just impressed by their resilience. You know, you go down in Swiss, it's easy to be down in the dumps and not play your best, but they kind of bounced back. They learned from it, they grew, and then they came out with a force in the bracket. So we'll have to see. It looks like, you know, it's possible that somebody could maybe beat them early, but who knows? We're going to talk about a couple honorable mentions as well. First one I want to throw out is Team Heretics. This team only got to play 2 series. They lost in Swiss to both Paper Rex and Wolves, the teams that finished in 1st and 3rd. So I don't think we really got to see the best of Team Heretics in Toronto. What do you think about this team, Pat?
I mean, I can't sugarcoat it. I was definitely disappointed with their performance. I definitely had them doing a lot better. And it's kind of a shame, because the EMEA region sometimes gets some flack in the community about not having strong teams, so to say, even though Fnatic has clearly proven that wrong. But it was like Benji, Fishy, and crew were just, they seemed lost so much out there at times. And they've stated how they played bad and that wasn't them, and they're going to come back stronger than ever. And that's what you want to see from Boo and Mini Buddha Brothers and everything. I think they are capable of competing at this level. And I can't remember exactly who's in their group, but whatever teams they may have, I think they're easily capable of taking on those teams if they just refine their strategies. Valorant is a game of strategy and is about timings and knowing when to use your abilities to coincide with each other to make pushes or defends. And all they need to do is just hone in on that, play their game, and I think they should have no problems having a lot better of a showing at EWC than they did at Masters.
Okay. Yeah, and just so you know, their group is going to be RRQ, NRG, and Titan Esports Club. So, yeah, I think they're definitely capable of coming out in first place in that group, at least top 2, and making it to the bracket. But that actually cues up our second honorable mention, which is RRQ in Heretics group. This is another team that only got to play 2 series in Toronto, so it's hard to really give them a fair eye test of their capabilities. They came in as the 1st seed from the Pacific region, and then to just get double first rounded. They lose to Wolves and Fnatic, the teams that finished 3rd and 2nd, of course. But this feels like another team that maybe suffered from the fact that they didn't get to play any games into the bracket, didn't really get to build any momentum. Of course, they're probably battling jet lag on the complete opposite side of the planet. Do we think we're going to maybe see a more ready and established RRQ in Riyadh as well?
I would like to think so. I think any team that gets double bounced out, like with Team Heretics, that they really are going to go back and analyze some things they did wrong, because it's not like they are a bad team by no reasons. I mean, they're the #1 APAC team. That's higher than Paper Rex, who ended up winning the tournament, or GenG. So they've proven in the past that they're capable of beating these teams. Maybe it was jet lag, maybe it was that first seed debuff that was going on, but it just seems like Jimkins wasn't there for that tournament. And he's one of those ones, kind of like Texture with GenG, where it's like, you know, he is one of those factors in the team where if he is going in and he's getting those kills, entry, and like we talked about in the previous one, he has those high first kill to first death ratios. I mean, there's no way you lose a game that way. So for me, it's about just getting themselves together, playing their game, because Moneyhead, he was doing really well in a couple of those series that they played, and they came kind of close. It's just about tightening those loose ends, shaking off that, and we all get to compete in the group stage this time, so nobody gets that debuff. So we'll finally get to see, and like you said, the group, they're in there with Team Heretics and stuff, so I think that's going to be a very interesting group to watch.
Definitely a group of death when I look at it. Also, fun thing to note, they beat Fnatic in a game, so, you know, at least taking a single map from the second place finishers shows that they're a pretty strong team. But that's going to do it for our wrap up of the top 5 teams to look out for in Riyadh. EWC is fast approaching. Make sure you guys take a look at it. It's going to be an awesome event. And stay tuned to the Global Gaming Network. Make sure you check out Today in Esports. We're going to be covering all the action that is going down live in EWC. And we'll see you guys in the next episode of Power Rank.